Hello, and welcome to another episode of Readings in Impact Investing, the show that features important readings in the world of impact investing, sustainable finance, development finance, and ESG through the medium of audio. This podcast is a non-profit initiative made available as a public good, and its ongoing operation is supported by community donations. Find the podcast online at readingsinimpact.org or on your favourite podcast platform. Now here's your host, Daniel Rosehill.
Hello friends and subscribers, welcome back to another edition of Readings in Impact Investing. This is a podcast and a YouTube channel which reads out textual material in the world of impact investing. It is produced by a human speaking into a microphone, which I predict is going to seem very quaint in 3 years in the future. You're going to say, wait, this guy actually read this and it wasn't a bot? I am not an AI bot, although I have actually cloned myself with AI in the last week, which was very, very trippy. I did a voice clone and an avatar clone, and they were pretty good. The technology is maturing, but for the moment, I'm just a guy with a microphone, reading. This podcast is intended to take reports in impact investing that are in text and make them available in audio so you can listen to them. I personally seem to digest information better through audio, and I figure I can't be the only one. This is available at readingsinimpact.org. That's our website, and there is links there to all the different places you can get this. And I need to add one to YouTube. I can't believe I forgot that. I'm going to go ahead and do that just after I record this. YouTube is automated now, which is amazing that YouTube has this cool feature. So it's just a copy. It's a carbon copy of the episodes just with the static background. So there's no real advantage to getting it on YouTube, but if you like to watch on YouTube, you might find this useful. Today, I'm going to be reading a Climate Bonds Initiative report, and this is just want to firstly introduce the Climate Bonds Initiative. I'm just going to read from their website. Climate Bonds Initiative is an international nonprofit working to mobilise global capital for climate action. Climate bonds has played a central role in transforming the green bond market from a niche concept to a mainstream source of capital for sustainable development, driving quality of issuance through the development of science-based green definitions in line with the Paris Agreement. So I'm going to be reading their Sustainable Debt Market Summary for Q3 2023. I'm going to just read part of it, not the whole thing. So this is obviously 1 quarter out of date, given that I'm recording this just at the start of 2024. In the 8 days of 2024, they haven't managed to put out the Q4 2024 report. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. They haven't, but that would be some prodigious pace of drafting. I imagine they are working on that, so I will do maybe an updated episode just with those figures. What I'm trying to do here is just kind of highlight the big picture stuff. So we've talked before about sustainability-linked bonds, SLBs, and how they're different from sustainable bonds, green bonds, social bonds, which are these use or proceed bonds that they're raised for specific purposes, whereas SLBs, they have this cool mechanism that adjusts the coupon based on how well the borrowing organization is doing at achieving its sustainable objectives. So they are arguably pay for success, right? The payment fluctuates according to success, and the interest rate is the mechanism for rewarding or penalizing, whereas the other ones are more traditional instruments. I think it's fair to say they're simpler. They're just regular bonds issued for a purpose, and SLBs have to have this KPI baked into them and varying coupons and so on and so forth. Anyway, so Climate Bonds Initiative, I imagine this will not be the last report I'll read of theirs. Who knows, it may be the first of many. And they're really, they have a good report library as well. The website, by the way, is climatebonds.net. So I'm going to jump around this report and just try to, again, focus on the big picture. By the end of Q3 of 2023, the Climate Bonds Initiative had recorded cumulative volumes of $4.2 trillion worth of green social sustainability and sustainability-linked debt in alignment with its screening methodologies. plus a further $12.7 billion worth of unscreened bonds bearing the transition label. So GSS is a kind of by now established label or catch-all, I would say. Catch-all is a better term for that. It is green, social, sustainable bonds. And they're using this one, which I admittedly have not seen before, called GSS Plus, to rope in SLBs. So anyway, 4.2 trillion. Year-to-date aligned GSS Plus bonds accounted for $618.2 billion, recording a 10% decline as compared to $685 billion for the same period over 2022. Aligned GSS Plus as a percentage of total issuance, I assume that's total bond issuance, remains at 5%. So these figures look great, and they are great in one sense, but then you look at how much they constitute in the overall bond market, and you begin to get the picture that, well, okay, these are still relatively small. Aligned QSS Plus debt for Q3 2023 accounted for $169.1 billion, some details I'm skipping. So they have this scorecard, which I will put up here as like the episode art, so you can kind of take a look at it. It shows basically the Q3 issuance, the year-to-date issuance for 2023 when this was put out, and cumulative since 2006. So I'm just going to read the 2023 year-to-date figures. Green bonds, number one, $415 billion, 67% of issuance. Social bonds, 95.8, 16% of issuance. Sustainability bonds, 88.8, 14% of issuance. SLBs, 16.8 billion, 3% of issuance. Transition bonds, 1.7, 0.3% of issuance. And I just did a quick calculation here on the side, dividing 88.8, that is the amount in billions of sustainability bonds, with 16.8, which is the amount in billions of SLBs, and I got a figure of 5.29. So basically 5 times as much issuance in sustainable bonds as SLBs. GSS Plus bonds captured by climate bonds. Bonds meeting the requirements outlined in climate bond screening methodology qualify for inclusion in the datasets and are classified as aligned. I'm not going to go into this detail. I think that's really not going to add to the big picture, I think. Sorry if I'm wrong and if you disagree. But they have their pending and non-aligned. So they actually have another $917.6 billion of non-aligned for 2023 coming behind those. Cumulative GSS Plus volume. At the end of Q3 2023, climate bonds had captured GSS Plus volume of $4.2 trillion, which has originated from supranational plus 103 countries. Supranational remains the largest source of aligned GSS Plus volume at $660.7 billion, with the USA $612, France $488 billion, and China $431 billion being the largest country sources. Other than China, South Korea, and Chile are the only emerging markets to appear in the top 15 most prolific countries. In all 3 cases, strong policy support has contributed to the growth of robust local and international markets. Aligned GSS Plus deals have been priced in 61 currencies. Most of the volume has either been in euro at 41% or US dollars at 32%, with CNY as the third most dominant currency responsible for just 8%. Government-backed entities, financial corporates, non-financial corporates, and development banks are the source of 84% of cumulative GSS Plus volume. And let me give you those numbers. Government-backed entities was $997.2 billion. Financial corporates were $946.8 billion. Non-financial corporates were $895 billion. Development banks were $698 billion. Among the government-backed entities, the largest issuers of aligned GSS Plus debt were the European Union with $164.6 billion, French social security provider Caisse d'Amortissement de la Dette Sociale, $158.6 billion, and Fannie Mae at $117 billion. The sovereign issuer type has contributed 10% to total GSS Plus volumes, which is highlighted in prior iterations of this paper, suggests substantial potential considering that sovereign debt is responsible for about 2/3 of the overall debt market. Year-to-date GSS Plus volume. $618.2 billion worth of aligned GSS Plus debt was priced in the first 3 quarters of 2023, remaining at 5% of total debt issuance. The green theme contributed 67%, social bonds added 16%, sustainability bonds 14%, SLBs 3%, and unscreened transition bonds made up the final 0.3%. And they have a nice breakdown here, which shows the fluctuations, which I'm going to recommend that people read, or if you're interested, check it out. It's from 2018 to 2023, and they show greens, the mixture again of green, social, sustainability, SLB, and transition. And you can see how that's changing. I would just make an observation that green kind of peaked in 2021 as a label, and it's kind of coming back a little bit. Year on year, it's been coming back from 2022 and 2023. So I would perhaps argue that there is a trend towards more precise labels, although I think that's arguable, and these guys are surely the experts as to whether green is more of a kind of wide catch-all than the other labels of social and sustainable. I'm going to skip the quarterly comparisons, which they do have, because I think that's a little bit too much detail. But I'm going to go with the market highlights in the different segments. And again, this is going to be kind of a lot of detail in this report. But I think for people who are wondering, like, who's doing the issuance, who are the issuers, what projects are they funding, all those open questions, many of which I have. I'm also very much a learner in the field of impact investing. I think this might provide good detail. So the Q3 2023 market highlights. Firstly, in green bonds. By the end of Q3, climate bonds had recorded cumulative aligned green bond volumes of 2.6 trillion, breaching the 2.5 trillion milestone. Year-to-date, aligned green bond volumes were 3% ahead of the same period in 2022. The euro dominated the green bond market as a currency. Aligned green bonds captured in Q3 2023 originated from 41 countries. Germany was the largest source, with volumes of $17.7 billion split over 35 deals. And the most prolific country by deal count was the US, with 332 green bond issuances amounting to 15.5 billion of capital. Social bonds, and again, just to make clear, in this report I am skipping. I often read stuff through in this report. I'm just trying to pick out the extracts that I think are most interesting. Social, cumulative aligned volumes of social bonds had reached 797.3 billion by the end of Q3. Year-to-date aligned social bond volumes were $95.8 billion. CADS maintained its reputation as the largest issuer of social bonds, with a single $4 billion deal accounting for 14% of the total in Q3 of 2023. In sustainability, cumulative aligned sustainability volumes reached 762.7 billion by the end of Q3 2023. Aligned sustainability volumes of $88.8 billion were recorded in the first 9 months of 2023, a decline of 38% compared to 143.3. Top 10 countries of aligned sustainability debt in Q1 to Q3. So this is showing the US dollar billion 2023 first 3 quarters. I'm just going to read in descending order. So the most first. Yeah, that is descending order. Mexico, Japan, supranational, France, USA, South Korea, Thailand, Brazil, Spain, Germany. So Mexico issued the most sustainable debt in 2023, followed by Japan, quite interestingly, and then supranational, then France, US, South Korea, followed by Thailand, Brazil, Spain, and Germany. Now we come on to SLBs, sustainability-linked bonds. By the end of Q3, climate bonds had recorded aligned SLB volume of $42.5 billion. This includes deals falling into the fully aligned, strongly aligned, and aligned categories. In the first 3 quarters of 2023, $16.8 billion of SLB volumes were recorded as aligned, an increase of 59% compared to the $10.6 billion recorded in the same period in 2022. This suggests that more issuers are coming to the market with relevant deals that closely match the inclusion of the Climate Bonds SLB database. In Q3, climate bonds recorded SLB volume of $18 billion, but just 14 deals amounting to USD $8.6 billion qualified as aligned. Chile made the largest contribution to aligned SLB issuance, with $5.2 billion spread over 4 sovereign deals. Finally, we come on to the transition label. By the end of Q3 2023, climate bonds had recorded a cumulative volume of $12.7 billion in bonds which bared the transition label. Year-to-date issuance accounted for $1.7 billion compared to $2.7 billion in the same period of 2023. Climate bonds has historically recorded but not screened bonds bearing the transition label. Climate bonds records such bonds as an independent category, but regards them as a subset of the green label. As of January 2023, climate bonds will not delineate bonds issued with the transition label. They will be added to the Climate Bonds Green Bond database and screened according to its Green Bond database methodology. Now we come on to the topic of issuers. We're going to look firstly at GSS Plus sovereigns. At the end of Q3 2023, climate bonds had recorded aligned GSS Plus bonds from 49 sovereigns with a combined volume of $435.5 billion, a 35% increase year to date. Green is the largest segment in sovereign issuance with $348.3 billion or 80%, and France retaining its crown as the largest source of aligned GSS Plus sovereign debt with $66.3 billion in cumulative volume. So we see that in the realm of sovereign issuance, there is more with the green label than in general. In Q3, $21 billion of aligned sovereign volume was recorded by climate bonds. This was split between taps of $12.7 billion from 6 issuers and new deals worth $8.2 billion from 3 issuers. In August, Austria priced another green 3-month treasury bill. The $1.5 billion deal will be rolled over in November. Austria is the only sovereign to have issued short-term paper bearing a thematic label. Chile priced its first SLB in March of 2022 and published its updated SLB frameworks in June of 2023. A KPI on female board representation was added to the existing pair of environmental KPIs related to GHG emission reduction targets and renewable energy share. In July, Mexico returned to the sustainability bond market with a $1.4 billion deal with UOP linked to the UN SDGs. By the end of Q3, climate bonds had recorded aligned sustainability volume of $13 billion for Mexico, which published its sustainable finance taxonomy in March of 2023. Okay, now let's take a look at the non-sovereign issuers in Q3 of 2023. And again, I think the purpose here, or just for me, is to kind of get some specific examples, because you read about these figures and you read about these categories and the narrative kind of gets a bit lost. Who is doing this issuance for what and where? And I think this report, just want to recommend people really interested in the sustainable debt space. I'm sure you probably know about it. This is my first time reading one of their reports, and I'm glad that I did, because it's given a very good flavor of how things are so far. So we're going to go category by category, starting with green. The 2 largest aligned green deals priced in Q3 were both green loans. India clean energy provider Renew Power accepted a $7.8 billion green loan from Power Finance Corporation and Rural Electrification Corporation, each of which provided half of the capital. The UOP were earmarked for low-carbon energy, including solar, wind, hybrids, energy storage, solar module, cell manufacturing, and green hydrogen. Canadian gas and low-carbon energy provider Northland Power signed a $5.2 billion credit agreement to finance Baltic Power's offshore wind project. Once operational, the project is expected to power over 1.5 million Polish households and will make a substantial contribution to Poland's energy transition targets. So within green, so far we're seeing 2 energy projects. Volkswagen is a frequent green bond issuer with a cumulative aligned volume of $12.6 billion, including $4.2 billion added in Q3. In late August, a pair of perpetual bonds with a cumulative volume of $1.8 billion extended the company's green liability profile, and in mid-September, 3 bullet bonds maturing in 3, 6, and 9 years added combined volumes of 1.2. The UOP That's use of proceeds of Volkswagen's green bond program is exclusively channeled to support electric vehicles. So energy and electric vehicles. In the realm of social, so South Korea priced the largest volume of aligned social bonds with $7.8 billion across 95 deals. 2 social bond issuers from the region appeared among the top 5. The Korea Housing Finance Corporation made the largest contribution to the social bond market in Korea with a total aligned volume of $2.5 billion split over 17 deals in a mixture of currencies. Korea's SMEs and Startup Agency is a non-profit, government-funded organization supporting the sustainable growth and development of Korean SMEs. The agency priced 9 social deals with cumulative volume of $908 million, with proceeds earmarked for education and finance. In the realm of sustainability bonds, $5.6 billion of aligned sustainability bonds originated from Japan in Q3, accounting for a 29% share, followed by South Korea and Mexico with $2.5 billion each. Development Bank of Japan was the largest issuer, pricing 4 deals in a mixture of currencies with a combined volume of $3 billion. The use of proceeds were earmarked for low-carbon energy buildings, transport, healthcare, equality, employment, and affordable housing. Toyota added a trio of USD bonds in mid-July with a combined volume of $1.5 billion. Cumulatively, Climate Bonds has recorded $15.3 billion in aligned deals from Toyota, split between $8.7 billion in the green theme and $6.6 billion under the sustainability label. Now we come on to sustainability-linked bonds. In Q3 of 2023, Climate Bonds recorded SLBs from 10 non-sovereign issuers, amounting to $3.4 billion. The largest deal was a 900 million euro 7-year SLB from German retail and tourism group REWE with sustainability performance targets, SPTs, linked to reductions in all 3 scopes of emissions. So again, SPTs is the KPIs that are used as yardsticks for the debt payment in SLBs. In Q3, 52% of all SLBs priced did not qualify for inclusion in Climate Bonds dataset. The main reasons for this were a lack of GHG emission targets and partial emission coverage and targets, but other deals were excluded for a lack of Scope 3 disclosure, lack of target disclosure, only partial alignment with the sector pathway, and use of economic intensity targets. Climate Bonds hopes that the introduction of its methodology will encourage issuers to be more ambitious when designing their SLB frameworks. If you ever find yourself wondering how SLBs work in practice, then we have a case study now from Nishimatsu Construction, a Japanese company, 0.6%, 27th July 2028. This is the SLB. So, Nishimatsu is a Japanese company primarily engaged in civil engineering, construction, contracting, and real estate. Among Japan's largest construction businesses, they recorded net sales of 339 billion yen in 2023, in fiscal year 2023. In 2022, Nishimatsu reported total GHG emissions of 3.3 million tons of CO2, of which 2% are Scope 1 and 2 emissions, and 98% are Scope 3. Wow, so you can really see the difference when Scope 3 is considered. Scope 3 Category 11 emissions associated with energy use during the operational phase of completed and delivered buildings comprise over 75% of Nishimatsu's total emissions. In July of 2023, Nishimatsu priced a $142 million SLB with a 5-year maturity. The coupon is linked to 2 SPT, specific performance targets, which cumulatively cover about 77% of the company's target footprint. Target 1, the KPI, is Scope 1 and 2 emissions reduction, and the SPT is an annual reduction of 42% versus 2020 baseline. So this is how I always thought it was confusing because I thought that SPTs were just another word for KPIs. So that's not really how it works in SLBs. The KPI is the objective, and the SPT is like the specific thing that's going to be linked. Target 2 is KPI, Scope 3 emissions reduction rate, and the SPT is an annual reduction of 25% versus a 2020 baseline. The target year is 2026 fiscal year, and the financial mechanism is redemption premium. green electricity certificate or carbon offset. If the first target is not met, Nishimatsu will purchase emission credits or green power certificates equivalent to 0.7% of the bond issuance amount and 0.03% if the second target is not met. The company identified the bond and its associated KPIs as essential indicators of its commitment to carbon neutrality by 2023. This bond is considered fully aligned when assessed against Climate Bond Sustainability-Linked Bonds database methodology. We then have in this Q3 report a section called Spotlight the Middle Eastern Africa Sustainable Debt Market Snapshot Q3 of 2023, looking at all these different categories in the Middle East and Africa in MEA, and it stretches on for 5 pages. It's a lot of detail on a specific region of the world, and therefore I'm going to actually just not include it in this podcast because I intended this to be kind of just a roundup of the big picture. So if you do want to read it, go on to climatebonds.net, find the Q3 2023 report, and you can find all the detail, including the individual issuances for specific bonds, what they're used for, the deal size, etc. So there's a really tremendous amount of detail provided in this document. So I'm just going to finalize this podcast by reading the outlook. The GSS Plus market is the ideal vehicle for financing the energy transition and the growing demands for mitigation and adaptation solutions in MEA. Aligned GSS Plus volumes from the region have increased rapidly in 2023. This is in the Middle East, driven by countries in the Middle East. Actions taken by Arab nations, including Saudi Arabia and UAE, has contributed scale to the market, but there is a significant shortfall in deals from other countries in the region to address the growing climate vulnerabilities. Closing this gap requires strong policy commitments combined with mechanisms such as relevant taxonomies and green tagging to enable aggregation, as well as deploying blended finance at scale. COP28 provides an opportunity to harness the collective power of all stakeholders, including governments, policymakers, banks, and development finance institutions, to achieve rapid decarbonisation and adaptation. So I guess this was written before COP28 was convened. So that was the report. I'm very much looking forward to reading more from this authoring entity, especially including their year-end report, which I expect they will be producing, and I'll keep an eye out for that. Thanks very much for listening to this episode of Readings in Impact Investing. If you found this useful, if you work in the space of impact investing, sustainable finance, or specifically the debt market, do please consider sharing this with your colleagues. And if you want to get in touch with me to suggest to read a report, you wrote one, the company you wrote for wrote one, your friend wrote one, for whatever reason, it's public@danielrosehill.com. That's my email address. Thank you for listening to another episode of Readings in Impact Investing. Until the next time, wishing you well.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Readings in Impact Investing, presented by Daniel Rosehill. If you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend or colleague? And consider leaving a review or rating to help spread the word. Don't forget to subscribe via readingsiниmpact.org or find the show on your favourite podcast platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.